So basically the equation of a line, if I had like the XY plane and I had any line in the XY plane, like something like that, um, then the equation of a line would essentially represent the set of all the points that on the line that satisfy the equation. So for example, like a lot of the times when you write the equation of a line, the line will have an equation, something in the form of y equals mx plus b. So this usually represents like the equation of a line. So let's break this down. Y simply represents like the y coordinate of a point on the line. X, so x kind of represents the x coordinate of the same point on the line. M represents like the slope of the line. And B represents like something called the y-intercept of the line. So these are some important terms to know. And what this like equation means, like y equals mx plus b, what that like mathematically means is that all the points x comma y, like on the line, like if I have a point x comma y on the line, then if I were to plug in x, plug in y into the equation, y equals mx plus b, then it must satisfy. So basically, like, to find the equation of a line, we clearly see that like m here represents the slope. So if we can find the slope, which we just talked about, then we can find the coefficient of this x term. Now the main question here is, what is this like b term? Like, what is this y-intercept? Like, how do we calculate it? What does it represent? The y-intercept simply like represents the point where the line hits the y-axis. So remember that this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. So the value of b represents where this red line here, where does it hit this y-axis? So it's going to be this special point here, 0 comma b, and 0 comma b represents like the y-intercept of this red line here. So if we are able to find the like y-intercept and we are able to know the slope of the line, then we can like directly find the equation of the line. So like let's probably like look at some specific examples just to make it more clear like how this works. So let's see. So let's say we knew that the slope of a line, for example, was 5. So let's say we know the slope of a line is 5, and let's say the line passes through the point 0 comma 9. Then basically the equation of this line would just be like we would have y equals like 5x, because we're given the slope of the line is 5, which means that we know that the coefficient of the x term must be 5. And then plus like b is the y-intercept. In this case, they already gave it to us. The y-intercept is 9. So the equation of this line would just be y equals 5x plus 9. And what this represents like mathematically is like all the points that lie on this line must also satisfy this equation. So that tells us that the point, for example, 2 comma 19 must lie on this line, or the point like 1 comma 14 must lie on this line. This like this equation represents the set of all points that lie on the line. So that's kind of like the mathematical like interpretation of the equation of a line. And this is probably like one of the most simple cases they'll give you. But sometimes they might not directly give you the slope, or they might not directly give you the y-intercept. Sometimes they might give you instead 2 points, and you need to find the equation of the line. So let's take a look at example 2.2. So example 2.2 says like find the equation of a line passing through the points 1, 2, and 3, 10. So this is example 2.2 on the handout. So the reason this question might be a little more challenging is because like the question didn't directly give us the slope of the line, and it didn't give us the y-intercept of the line either. So it didn't give us M or B directly. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to calculate the slope ourselves. So as we discussed earlier, like the slope of the line can be calculated by taking the difference in the y coordinates and dividing by the difference in the x coordinates. So here the two y coordinates are 2 and 10. So the difference between the y coordinates is just 10 minus 2. And now remember that slope is going to be, so this is equal to m. So remember that slope is equal to the difference in the y coordinates divided by the difference in the x coordinates. And we know the x coordinates are 1 and 3. So the difference in the x coordinates is going to be 3 minus 1. So we can just calculate this. On the top, we have 8. On the bottom, we have 2. So 8 divided by 2, the slope must be 4. So we found the slope of the line, and we know m is 4. So we know the equation is y equals mx plus b. So the equation of the line must be in the form of y equals 4x plus b, since we found that the slope was 4. And now all we need to do is find what is b, what is the y-intercept. But unfortunately here, they didn't give us a y-intercept, right? In the previous problem, they gave us the point 0, 9. And the reason this was a y-intercept is because the x-coordinate was 0. So like we automatically knew the 9 represented the y-intercept. But in this case, they didn't give us a y-intercept. They only gave us 2 arbitrary points on the line. But what we can do is remember that like the interpretation, the meaning of the equation of a line, like what this equation represents is it contains like all the points x comma y that lie on the line. So any point x comma y that lies on the line connecting the points 1, 2, and 3, 10 must satisfy this equation. So that means if I were to plug in the point 1, 2 into this equation, then it has to like satisfy the equation. So essentially in this case, like x would be equal to 1 and y would equal to 2. So if I were to plug in y for 2 and 1 for x, then I get 2 equals 4 times 1 plus b. So I can solve for b, and from here I get b equals -2. So now I found the value of b. So that means the equation of the line must be y equals 4x minus 2. And yeah. And if you wanted to check your answer, since we know that this line must contain the set of all points that lie on this equation, must contain all points that lie on the line, we can also easily verify that the point 3, 10 also satisfy the equation. Like if you were to plug in x equals 3, y equals 10, then you would find that on the right side, 4 times x, 4 times 3 minus 2 gives you 10, which is equal to y. So like we can verify that the point 3, 10 lies on the line, which is why like this is the equation of the line.